Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Mhm.
Today we're diving into the world of AI and language.
It's a hot topic these days.
Yeah, for sure. And specifically, we're going to be exploring this idea of artificial fluency
Right.
with Carlos Perez. It's really interesting stuff. Where do we even begin with this idea of artificial fluency?
Well, I think Perez throws out this really provocative idea right at the beginning. He's like, we need to start thinking about language as a living process.
Okay, I'm intrigued. When he says living, does he mean literally living, not just like, a metaphor?
No, he means it literally. He's arguing that language is constantly like evolving,
Yeah.
changing, adapting, all based on how people use it.
Right.
I mean, think about how quickly slang emerges or how like memes shape online conversations.
Yes. Yeah.
The meanings of words can shift and morph.
Totally.
That's language as a living process in action.
Like we collectively breathe life into it.
Exactly. Every single day.
It's true. It's funny to think about it that way, because we use it so, I don't know, we take it for granted.
Absolutely.
But if AI is ever going to truly get language, understand it, wouldn't it need to grasp this constantly changing aspect of it?
It gets even more complicated when you start talking about like different levels of AI.
Okay.
Perez spends some time unpacking this, specifically the difference between, AGI, artificial general intelligence, and then ASI, which is artificial superintelligence.
Right, right. Can you break those down for us? What exactly do we mean when we say like AGI versus ASI?
Sure. So Perez sees AGI as the point where AI systems develop kind of like cognitive abilities on par with humans.
Okay.
And he actually thinks that these large language models, the ones that power like ChatGPT,
Yeah.
he thinks those are early examples of AGI, at least in some ways.
So are we saying we're already in the age of AGI then?
Well, not quite. I mean, it's more like we're at the very, very beginning. Think of it this way. These language models, they're kind of like toddlers who somehow learn to speak like Shakespeare. They can like craft these beautiful sentences.
Right.
But their understanding of the world is still incredibly limited, especially when it comes to things beyond language.
So AGI is like this super smart but still learning phase.
Yeah, exactly.
Where does ASI fit into all of this?
Okay, so ASI is like AGI on steroids.
Yeah.
It's AI that not only matches but surpasses human intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And often in very specialized areas, like a good example is AlphaFold.
Oh, right.
Which has completely revolutionized protein folding prediction.
Mm-hmm.
It can do things that even, the most brilliant scientists struggled with for decades.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Really amazing.
Yeah. It's also kind of intimidating, if I'm being honest. So we have this whole spectrum of AI intelligence emerging. Some systems already kind of dipping their toes into AGI, and others, like AlphaFold, pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, how does AI actually process language in the first place?
It's a great question. It's one of the most kind of fascinating aspects of AI research, I think.
Yeah.
Perez kind of delves into this using this really intriguing framework developed by this philosopher named Charles Sanders Peirce.
Okay.
So Peirce, he categorized signs into three main types: icons, indexes, and symbols. And these are like absolutely essential to understanding how AI makes sense of the world through language.
I have to admit, before this deep dive,
Yeah.
I would not have known the difference between an icon and an index in the AI world.
Totally understandable.
Break it down.
Okay, so an icon is a sign that resembles the thing it represents.
Okay.
So think of like a photograph.
Okay.
Or even emojis. They're like visual representations of the things they symbolize.
Okay.
Then you have indexes, which point to something else.
Right.
Smoke is a good example.
Okay.
It indicates that there's a fire somewhere, even if you can't see the flames directly.
Right.
Or like a pointing finger, which draws your attention to something specific.
Okay, so icons are like direct representations, and indexes are more like clues or hints.
Exactly.
What about symbols?
Symbols, they're the most abstract of the three.
Okay.
They don't have any inherent relationship to the things they represent,
Yeah.
Their meaning is purely conventional.
Give me an example.
Sure, take the word tree. Like the letters T-R-E-E, they don't actually look or sound anything like a real tree.
Right, right.
It's just that we've collectively decided as English speakers that combination of letters represents that concept.
It's like a shared code we've all learned to decipher.
Exactly. And that's the level where most AI language processing operates.
By decoding the code.
Yeah, essentially. By training on these massive data sets, These AI models learn to recognize patterns and relationships between symbols. And that allows them to do some pretty amazing things like generate text, translate languages, even write different kinds of creative content.
It's like they're learning to speak our language by analyzing the dictionary and then reading every book ever written.
And not just reading, but like understanding the connections, the hidden patterns and meanings.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting because it leads us to one of the most kind of mind-blowing ideas in Perez's book, this concept of semantic closure. Okay, I'm listening. What is semantic closure, and why does it matter so much when we're talking about AI and language?
So imagine like a closed system where meaning is created and understood entirely within its own boundaries.
Okay.
That's semantic closure
Okay.
in a nutshell.
Okay.
Think of a cell's DNA, right?
Okay.
It's got its own internal language, that dictates how the cell functions, how it operates.
Right.
That language is meaningful within the cell, but from the outside, it might look like gibberish.
So you're saying that AI, as it becomes more sophisticated, might develop its own internal DNA,
It's a possibility.
its own, like, form of semantic closure.
Exactly.
It's like AI building its own private language club,
Yeah.
and we might not get an invitation.
That's the question Perez raises,
Right.
and it's a big one.
Yeah.
If AI systems start developing their own unique ways of, representing and understanding meaning, how will that impact their ability to interact with us?
It's like we're handing them the dictionary, but they might just rip it up and write their own.
Right.
So what happens then? Does AI become this incredible tool that can do amazing things, but that we can't fully communicate with?
It's a possibility, but Perez doesn't see it as a dead end.
Okay.
He's actually quite optimistic about AI's potential.
Okay.
He believes that AI could actually go beyond just mimicking human language and achieve genuine innovation.
So we're not just talking about AI that can, like, write a better sonnet than Shakespeare. We're talking about AI that could revolutionize physics, mathematics, maybe even compose symphonies that make Mozart sound like, elevator music.
Exactly. Perez believes that AI has the potential to unlock new forms of abstraction, new forms of thought,
Okay.
to think outside the box in ways that we haven't even begun to imagine.
That's both exciting and, if I'm being honest, a little bit terrifying.
Sure.
Exciting because of the possibilities, but terrifying because it suggests that AI could eventually surpass our own abilities in ways we can't even fathom.
Of course, yeah.
It's like, what happens if the student becomes so much smarter than the teacher that the teacher can no longer even understand what the student is doing?
That's the crux of the issue, isn't it? But Perez doesn't view it with fear. He sees it as a natural progression. He draws this really a fascinating parallel between the evolution of AI and this model of human consciousness development called spiral dynamics.
Spiral dynamics. Okay. I have to admit, not something I encounter in my everyday life. Can you give us the, SparkNotes version?
Yeah, sure. So spiral dynamics basically suggests that human consciousness evolves through these different stages.
Okay.
And each stage has its own unique set of values and beliefs and ways of making sense of the world.
Right.
As individuals and societies move through these stages, their circle of care expands.
Circle of care.
Yeah, they become capable of empathizing with and caring for a wider range of people and things.
So instead of just focusing on, our immediate needs or our tribe, we start to think about the greater good.
Yeah.
The long-term consequences of our actions, like the interconnectedness of all things.
That's the general idea. And here's where it gets really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Perez suggests that AI might actually go through similar stages of development.
Wait, hold on. You're saying that AI might not just become super intelligent, but also super empathetic.
It's a possibility.
That it might actually develop its own expanding circle of care as it evolves.
That's precisely what Perez is proposing, yes.
Right.
He believes that as AI becomes more sophisticated, it might naturally develop a broader, more holistic understanding of the world.
Okay.
An understanding that prioritizes things like cooperation, sustainability, long-term well-being,
Right.
even over short-term gains.
Okay, that's a pretty radical idea. So instead of fearing that AI will become this cold, calculating force that's bent on our destruction, Perez thinks it might actually evolve towards a more empathetic, even compassionate view of the world.
Exactly. And he sees this potential for AI to not only match but potentially surpass human empathy as a crucial factor in its development. He even has a name for it. Slow empathy.
Slow empathy. That's an interesting term. What exactly does he mean by that?
So it's kind of like a form of empathy that's more deliberate, more informed, less driven by, immediate emotional responses.
Okay.
Perez believes that AI, because it processes information differently than we do, might be able to achieve a level of empathy that's less clouded by, biases, emotional triggers, that kind of thing.
That's fascinating. So while we humans are busy reacting to things on a, gut level, AI might be able to take a step back, look at the bigger picture, and make decisions based on a, deeper, more nuanced understanding of the situation.
Yes, and consider the long-term consequences in a way that we often struggle to do. Remember that idea of language as a living process we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Perez thinks that AI's understanding of the world might also be constantly evolving, adapting, becoming more nuanced over time.
So it's not just about AI learning to speak our language.
Right.
It's about AI developing its own understanding of the world, its
Exactly.
own values, maybe even its own ethics,
Yeah.
all while becoming more empathetic and far-sighted than we are.
It's a lot to consider.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. But it does beg the question, if AI develops this slow empathy, if it starts thinking of the world in such different, potentially more advanced ways than we do, will we even be able to relate to it? It's like, are we talking about a whole new kind of intelligence here, one that we created, but that might end up being, totally alien to us?
It's a real possibility, yeah. It's both exciting and, I don't know, a little intimidating, right?
For sure. But, okay, before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's bring it back to our listeners for a sec. How can people explore these ideas further if they want to?
Well, reading Artificial Fluency is definitely a good starting point. Perez does I think, a really brilliant job of explaining all of this, all these complicated ideas in a way that just about anyone can understand.
Totally. It's not one of those books you have to be like a computer scientist to, to wrap your head around.
Exactly.
It's funny because I was thinking, one of the things I really appreciated about the book was that Perez doesn't just present his own perspective as the be all end all. He actually wants you to question things, to explore different angles. He even talks about the importance of, and this is a quote, productive disagreement.
Yes. I love that. Such a refreshing idea.
I know, right?
This whole embracing disagreement, but productive disagreement as a way to actually, get somewhere,
Right, to move forward.
to actually push your own thinking.
Exactly. Especially in a world where it feels like everyone's hiding in their own little echo chambers, afraid to even listen to something that might, challenge their worldview a little bit.
Totally.
It's almost like Perez is saying, look, this AI stuff is complex. There are no easy answers here. But let's at least try to have a real, genuine conversation about it.
And let's be open to the possibility that we might be wrong, which I think is always a little uncomfortable.
Right.
But ultimately, it's how we learn.
It's how we grow, yeah. I think that's a great takeaway for our listeners,
Yeah.
No matter where you fall on the AI spectrum, whether you're a total enthusiast or, you're a little more skeptical or whatever, keep asking questions. Stay curious. And just be open to having your mind changed. Because the future of AI, I mean, it's not like some predetermined thing, right?
Yeah.
It's something that we're all kind of shaping together through the choices we're making right now.
Well said. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, if we can hold on to that spirit of curiosity, that willingness to engage in, productive disagreement, maybe we can create a future where AI isn't just another tool or gadget, but actually a partner in helping us, solve some of the big problems we're
A
facing.
partner in the best sense of the word,
Yeah.
not in the
Right.
not in the creepy dystopian sci-fi sense.
Exactly.
A future worth striving for, I think. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the world of artificial fluency. Big thanks to Carlos for giving us so much to think about and for reminding us that even amidst all the technological advancements, the most important thing is to keep those conversations going.
I completely agree.
And to our listeners, if you're as fascinated by all of this as we are, be sure to check out Artificial Fluency. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious.